Welcome Year 6 and welcome to the next instalment of the final part, I suppose, of this huge project that we've been doing. You should now have a beautiful double page spread set up in your English books, and we're going to look at decorating that tomorrow and making it look absolutely spick and span and brilliant as well. Today though, we're going to look at our last paragraph, which is all about the native Australians, or the Aborigines as we call them, and we're going to plan or sort of research about them, so then we can plan our final paragraph and write it up tomorrow. So rewinding though first, I've noticed quite a few people missing out capital letters and full stops and everything as well in their sentences, and we don't want to go over this when we come back as well. So pause the video and just have a quick look at which sentence here is punctuated correctly and why. Okay, so straight away, I can see that there are capital letters missing and full stops missing. So I can see that this one luckily starts with a capital letter, but it doesn't end with a full stop. This one does end with a full stop, but doesn't start with a capital letter. So I'm straight away being drawn to this one here, which has a capital letter and a full stop, and it looks like everything is spelled correctly as well. So I then would put a tick in this one. Next two questions that we've got here. This one first, which sentence needs one more capital letter? So have a read, and which one do you think does? Okay, so we've got then, they moved house last March. March has a capital letter because it is still a proper noun. They lived in a city called Chester. Chester's still got a capital letter because they've got a proper noun, and these are beginning with capital letters as well. Their school play is on Tuesday, again capital letters. School doesn't need a capital letter because it is just a building. The name of the school, Wyndham Primary, would need capital letters, but this word school doesn't. So their friend is called Ben Edwards. Looks like they've got a capital letter for Edwards, but they haven't for Ben. And quite a few of you have been doing that with Captain Cook as well, or Captain James Cook is not been put in capital letters for Cook or Captain, or even both. So can you make sure that you've gone over them, please, and make sure that he's got capital letters as well? And why do the underlined words start with a capital letter? On Saturday morning, Sarah and her family went on holiday to Scotland. Why have we got capital letters here? Well, hopefully then you've said the answer that because they are proper nouns. Proper nouns are the types of nouns that need capital letters. Remember, you need capital letters for proper nouns, which are the sort of unique nouns, so your names of places and names of people, and also the capital letters at the start of a sentence as well. So that was a quick rewind. Now we're going to move on to reading. Now what I've done is with the book, I've actually taken the pictures and put them in the screens for you, so you can pause the video as and when. And I think some people were saying they still couldn't quite see the writing, so hopefully you can see it a bit clearer this time. So I'm going to go on to chapter 2. I'm going to read it from a book which is in front of me now. There we go. So you can just pause it whenever you want to pause it and reread things, because we've got a few questions coming up later on. So we've got here the first people to live around the Great Barrier Reef were the Torres Strait Islanders and the Aboriginal Australians, or Aborigines, and then in brackets there is telling us how to pronounce it. Aborigines, Aborigines, and that's how we then say that word. Next page then, Aborigines playing didgeridoos. Now some of you might have heard of didgeridoos before. Later on I'm going to show you a bit of a video of someone actually playing them, and if you're lucky, tomorrow I've got a didgeridoo and I might play it to you as well. So about 50,000 years ago, these people came to Australia from Southeast Asia. Now, if we look at a map of the world, here, hopefully you can then see we've got Australia down here. I've sliced off Antarctica at the bottom just so I can zoom in a bit better. You've got Australia here at the bottom, and then you've also then got these islands here, which are the southeast of Asia here, and these islands here. Now, that's the bit we're interested in at the moment of the world. So if I go back to the reading, it said, about 50,000 years ago, these people came to Australia from Southeast Asia. When sea levels dropped, more land became exposed, and the Aborigines moved out to the water's edge. So During the Ice Age, remember, the waters dropped, the sea levels dropped, which then exposed more land between these two bits here, which meant that people could walk from this bit all the way over to Australia here. Then afterwards, when the ice started to melt, the sea levels rose again. It then swallowed up that land there. So now we haven't got that sort of strip of land. And now the people who are in Australia either stayed on Australia or sailed back to Southeast Asia. Okay, and quite a few people then stopped on Australia. So I'll read that bit again. About 50,000 years ago, these people came to Australia from Southeast Asia. When sea levels dropped, more land became exposed and the Aborigines moved out to the water's edge. Then, when the water rose again, some settled on the new islands and others moved to the mainland. And then we've got this thing called the continental shelf. Now, if you look at this picture, it took me quite a while to work out what this picture was showing us. Here's mainland. Think of this as the edge of Australia. So there's the beach almost. Think of it like that. Underneath the sea, you've then got this continental shelf. Now, some bits pop up and have got continental islands, and it's sort of linked with what we learned about in the reefs, about those little islands that are sort of pop up everywhere, that are actually bigger when the sea level became a bit lower. So if you imagine the sea level now is down here, this bit, this continental shelf is actually land that we could walk on and build on if we wanted to and do whatever we wanted on. But then with the sea level rose over the years, it's then swallowed up this land. Obviously now we can't go on that land. And then we've got these little islands poking out. And then here, you've then got the outer reefs. Now look exactly what this reef is doing. It is a barrier for all the sorts of sea over here. So if we've got any sort of big waves or stormy seas, they're hitting the reef first before they come over and hit the mainland as well. So this bit here is about this continental shelf. The edge of a continent that extends into the ocean and lies underwater is called the continental shelf. The width and depth of the continental shelf is different from place to place, but is usually around 40 miles wide. So this here is around 40 miles long, okay, and around 200 feet deep. When sea levels dropped, the East Australian continental shelf became land. It was hilly and covered in trees. Tribes of native people lived there. Wallabies and koala bears lived there too, but when the ocean rose back up, the continental shelf went back underwater. Today, the East Australian continental slope is home to the Great Barrier Reef, and that is what we learned about a few days ago. So now I'm just going to skip over the page. You're going to skip that over for you. Oh no, that's the map I put in. There you go, got some more reading there. There are more than 70 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander tribes still living in around the Great Barrier Reef today. But thousands of years ago, there were as many as 600 tribes just on the Great Barrier Reef. That is not in Australia. Many tribes spoke their own language, but none of them had a written language. I wonder why. Why do you think they didn't have a written language? Instead, they passed on their beliefs through fables, which are stories, cave paintings, and songs. They continue to do this today. Some of their stories are nearly 13,000 years old. They are among the first stories ever told on the planet. One is about a great flood when the sea rose and drowned the coastal plain. We know about that. We've just learned about that. While each tribe had its own language, many people spoke more than just their native tongue. Now, what we mean by that is the language they are, like, almost like the language they've been brought up on. So English is most of our native tongue. Some of you are lucky enough to be able to speak more than one language. That's because different Aboriginal tribes often came into contact with one another. They traded goods and grew to know one another. They also held gatherings for special occasions like sea turtle hunts. Ancient people of the Great Barrier Reef believed they belonged to the land and the sea. Before modern times, they depended on both for their survival. So they had great respect for the land and the sea because they depend on them for their survival. The land provided fruit and seeds, and stones used to make tools. Grasses and tree bark soaked in water could be made into fishing lines, ropes, and nets. That's really interesting, isn't it? They made their fishing nets and lines out of bark from trees. The sea provided food: fish, oysters, stingrays, sea turtles. Parts of these animals could be made into tools. Shark skin was used as sandpaper. That's amazing. That's good use of shark skin just there. Spines from stingrays were made into spear tips. Shells and bones could be turned into fish hooks. The Aborigines were clever hunters. To catch big sea creatures like manta rays or sea turtles, this here is a manta ray, this massive fish here. Ancient islanders sometimes used a fish called a remora, also called a sucker fish. The remora has a sucker-like organ on the top of its head. And the next page, you can probably just see it here. On the next page, you'll see more of them. It uses this sucker, there we go, skip over there, you can see them on there now, to attach itself to a larger animal. The remora survives by eating its host's leftover food and even its poop. Nice. Aborigines would attach a fishing line to the back fin of a remora. Next, the suckerfish was dropped into the water where it would swim off to find a ray or turtle. Once the remora had latched on, the fisherman would slowly reel in a big meal. That is a really clever use of a clever way of hunting, isn't it? Very much live baits. It's like homing torpedoes, aren't they? They are. And then we've got this here about boomerangs as well. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about boomerangs. It's not just those videos that go backwards and forwards on your mobile phone, but they're actually a tool as well. So Aborigines came up with a clever ways to hunt the land animals too. The boomerang is a light, curved tool, often carved out of wood. When thrown, it can become a weapon to wound prey. Boomerangs come in many shapes and sizes. They are broken into two main groups, returning and non-returning. Returning boomerangs come back to the thrower after spinning through the air, and Aborigines may have hunted flocks of birds with returning boomerangs. The hunter would throw the boomerang so it went past the flock. The boomerang would then turn and go back towards the flock. This would frighten the birds. They fly away from the boomerang, which was chasing them, and head straight back to the thrower. Hunters waiting with nets would then pounce on the birds, capturing them. And then non-returning boomerangs were thrown from great distances at larger animals. A boomerang thrown at high speed was said to be able to knock out a kangaroo's legs, which are incredibly strong, or break an emu's neck. Insane, really. And then the last bit I've just put at the bottom here. The Aborigines dependent on the reef for the survival. So too, the Great Barrier Reef depends on many things for its own survival. Everything plays a part, from the sun's rays to coral-eating fish. Even creatures so small they are invisible to the naked eye. And that's about the sort of introduction then to the Aborigines then, and the people living on the reefs. There's quite a few things about the Aborigines that we can make notes upon. And then I've got some questions for you here. Now, I've tried to make these just slightly bit harder, some of them. So some of them were worth 2 marks, and we've got a 3-marker question here as well. So what were who were the first people to live around the Great Barrier Reef? That's 2 marks. Where did these people originally come from? Now, if it's 2 marks, sorry, just going back to question 1, that's sort of 2 parts to the answer then. So try and think for 2 things there that you're going to put in your answer. Where did these people originally come from? What's a didgeridoo? What is the continental shelf? Use the words. So I want to see these words, and then you need to underline them as well. Sea levels, width, depth, underwater in your answer, and underline them, and you'll get 3 marks for that one. How many tribes lived there thousands of years ago? What were the fishing nets made from? What did the land provide? What did the sea provide? What was shark skin used as? How did they make spear tips and fish hooks? What is a boomerang? How many types are there, and what is the difference? And do you think Aborigines were clever people, and why? So that's your opinion there that I'm looking for question 10. Okay, do you think they were clever? Why do you think they were? Why do you think that? If you do think they were clever, or why do you think they weren't? Then it's up to you. So that's your questions for today. That's the thing that you're going to submit to me. Next thing I wanted to show you, just for curiosity really, is this video here. So this is an Aborigine playing the didgeridoo, and then I've got a video here that I want to share with you. Let me just get it up. Bear with me 1 second. There it is. So it's this video here. Now this guy's playing the didgeridoo. Now as he's doing it, he's going to zoom in on his face. Notice something about his breathing. So I want you to sort of concentrate on the sound that you can hear as well, but then look at the way he is breathing. Do you notice what he is doing to breathe? Okay, let's have a little watch. So far, have you seen him take a breath yet? Because I haven't. So what you'll notice he's doing is he's breathing out of his mouth down the didgeridoo to keep the music going, to keep that sound going. But then he's breathing in through his nose at the same time, and that's something that we call circular breathing. It's almost like a circle. It's coming in through his nose and straight away coming back out of his mouth, and then making the sound down the didgeridoo. So hopefully you'll be able to see that now. So it's really a really interesting thing to watch there, isn't it? And what I mean, what a beautiful sound as well. Nothing sounds like it at all, does it? Quite a cool sounding instrument that they've got there. So that was just for a bit of curiosity. So just to rewind back again, these questions, please submit it to me, and then maybe sort of little paragraph, couple of sentences about what you think about the sound of a didgeridoo as well, just for bonus marks as well. And then I shall see you tomorrow to write your final paragraph. See you later, year six.